if not the Hawker. These two structures have extensive painted surfaces, and Sunera Makan also has sculptures of certain kinds on its walls. My prime focus would be to look at these decorations and to analyze them in context of the developing, changing, evolving ideology and thought process of the patron, the Emperor Akbar. But before going into the details of what the paintings are and how they are to be perceived, first I'd like to point out certain opinions that are held regarding painting in the largely Islamicate world. There is one orthodox opinion which outrightly denies the making of images, making of faces and images to the domain of sin and forbiddance. There are prophetic traditions which claim that. Some of them are quoted here. And there are certain counter opinions to them which look at painting as a means of reaching higher truth. To quote one Persian author, Sadiq Bed, he says, I have traversed figure and arrived at meaning when he talks about paintings. And he was himself a portrait painter. And when he says meaning with a capital M, which suggests that his meaning means the higher truth. It might also mean God. Mughal Empire also is informed on similar lines regarding painting. We have Abul Fazl, who says, when he was talking about making of images, he says, what we call form leads us, this is within quotes, what we call form leads us to recognize a body. The body itself leads us to what we call a notion, an idea. Thus, the idea is the ultimate aim which needs to be achieved from an image, and this is something that Mughal consciousness is informed of. Apart from that, he also adds to his description about images and says, making of likeness of figure or an image can lead a regulated mind from ignorance to wisdom. So image also becomes a source of attaining wisdom. Thus, the domain of painting has been shifted from that of sin to that of worship or having divine sanction. Akbar himself seems to be aware of the criticism that was leveled against the making of paintings. He says, within quotes, there are many that hate painting, but such men I dislike. It appears to me as if painters have quite a peculiar means of recognizing God. For a painter, in sketching anything that has life and in devising its limbs one after the other, must come to feel that he cannot bestow individuality upon his work and is thus forced to think of God, the giver of life, and will thus increase in knowledge. So Akbar is not coming to God through painting by the form of the painting itself, but by the process of it, through which, according to him, the painter might realize the presence of God or the importance of God in creation of humankind. Having looked at the consciousness that informs the Mughal elite, at least, I'd like to shift the focus to the two structures that I'm going to look at. They are located in the main palace complex. Khwabga is located somewhere here, and this is the area which has been called Sunehra Makan. It has been called many things. It has been called Mariam's house, but these are the two structures that I'm going to look at. The first structure, that is the Khwabga, has had elaborate paintings, most probably. Most of them have not survived. It has Persian couplets which talk of the divinity of the occupant, which draw parallel between this particular structure and that of paradise, also substantiating the argument of divinity of the occupant itself. There are two paintings in the Khwabga which are of importance for this paper right now. One is located above the northern doorway of the structure. This has been identified as a temple scene. I'd like to go a little ahead. This is the sketch that was made of that painting by E.W. Smith. It was in so this is the painting that is there, that has been identified as a temple scene. E.W. Smith goes ahead and calls this particular central figure as Buddha. This is a very hazy picture. We could not photograph it right now. This is the photograph from 1995. Smith calls this central image as Buddha and identifies the lower section which has dismembered bodies. I'm not really sure if it's visible to everybody, but there are dismembered bodies, idols, images that are there, broken limbs, cut limbs that are there. And Smith says that the upper image is of Buddha. This is Buddha, and these are his fallen enemies. This consciousness, this awareness regarding Buddha is something that was not very well known to the Mughals. Mughals did not know Buddha as Buddha himself. They knew Buddha only as an avatar of Vishnu, and he was not that important in the scheme of things that how Mughals worked in their own religious opinions. So having Buddha as the central theme of the painting of a Khwabga of the emperor seems highly unlikely. Another interpretation that can be given that I'd like to provide before you, before the audience, is that this might be a representation of the process of the worship of an idol which has been described by Abul Fazl. He explains that in the process of divine worship, the supreme deity itself can assume elemental form, can assume a form, a physical form, where several deities are made of gold and other substances, and the mind then is gradually withdrawn from those many deities to one particular higher being. According to him, there are certain things that he also adds to the condition of worship. Some of these which are of concern regarding this painting can be that the deity was supposed to be of gold. He's supposed to be sitting on a throne, strewn with flowers. There are floral decorations on the borders of the central chamber where the deity is located. So there's supposed to be floral decorations around the deity, and the devotee is supposed to present before the deity in a namaskara posture. If we see, look here, there are two human figures that are there. One is with the halo, and the other is a man who appears to be a devotee. If we go back to this image, this becomes a little clearer. This is the man with the halo has been missed out here, and this is the other image. This person seems to be holding a namaskara posture that is supposed to be held in front of the deity of gold. So the possibility can be that this painting is representing that process of worship, and the hallowed man himself might be Akbar guiding the ignorant to the higher truth. But the painting can only be explained in speculation. There is no solid evidence to suggest what it represents, but the presence of this temple scene, there is a shikhar at the top of the idol. The presence of this scene within the chamber of the emperor reflects his own interest in diverse faiths, or in the Hindu faith as such. If we take Hindu in the within quotes, another painting within the Khwabga is on the eastern doorway, which there is shown an angel carrying a child. This has been interpreted by E.W. Smith as the birth of Jesus, and also by Professor Rezavi as the representation of the divine origin of Akbar. Ellen Koa herself, if we are familiar with the myth of Ellen Koa, how Ellen Koa was divinely conceived a child, and that light passed down through generations to Akbar. It was manifested in his being. So this representation, which has been identified with the birth of Jesus and with Ellen Koa, is a very interesting theme to understand the psychology of the emperor, probably because there has been a strong parallel that is being drawn during the Mughal time between Mary and Ellen Koa herself. So the attempt from this painting might actually be to draw a messianic parallel that Akbar might have tried, that for Jahangir Epicosh writes that he tried to draw messianic parallels from certain of his surface decorations. Akbar might also be doing the same thing from this, along with asserting his divine origin, his divinity as such. These were the two structures two surface decorations, two paintings at the Khwabga at Fatehpur Sikri. The other structure that I'm going to deal with is Sunehra Makan. This also has interesting paintings. One painting which has been termed as an annunciation scene is this one. It is a sketch by W. Smith. In this, the placement of angels in this scheme seem very similar to all the other annunciation scenes painted in in Europe and other places. These angels, though are not of European type. There's a difference between Iranian type of an angel and a European type of an angel. These are of Iranian prototype. These though are not of European type, but the entire theme seems very similar to the Annunciation scene. This might actually have been commenting or drawing the parallel between Mary and Alankoa. Might not necessarily have been Mary, but Alankoa. But the theme is similar. The nature of the execution is also very similar to Annunciation scenes, other Annunciation scenes painted at other places. Another painting that this is what has survived of this painting in 1995, not now. The other scene is the fall in the Garden of Eden, which has been also identified by Smith. This scene, which has angels and angelic figures in the top panel and a man and a woman in a garden setting in the lower panel, seem to reflect the fall in the Garden of Eden. Can also reflect the divinity and divine origin of the Mughal Empire. That's something that can be speculated. But the one thing that can be said from these two paintings are that the consciousness or the theme might be shared between Christianity and Islam, because both the religions have a reverence of Mary, reverence of Christ, and also faith in the myth of the fall of Adam and Eve. But the execution in this manner is something that is specifically Christian or European in nature. Apart from these Christian themes, there are execution of sculptures and paintings of Hindu motifs as well. One very interesting one is this, which is located in the northern facade of the Sunehra Makan. This is Lord Ram standing on a lotus, holding two lotus buds, being attended by Lord Hanuman. This is there on the northern facade. Another sculpture is of Lord Hanuman, who seems to be holding a gada in his hand. Further, there is a painting which is now in a very bad shape, but was of Lord Ganesh, which was located in the niche, one of the niches of the structure on the outer side. Further, there is a temple scene. This is a sketch by W. Smith. Now it's not surviving. This serene Nagara temple scene is also depicted on the structure Sunehra Makan. These are some of the paintings. Having established the paintings that are there, these are not the only paintings that are there on Sunehra Makan, but the paintings which are of the concern of this paper right now because of the religious connotation of these paintings. Having established what is there in Fatehpur Sikri, I would like to submit that these paintings reflect Akbar's own developing thought process and were not for any outside eye as such. To further substantiate this point, I'd like to bring about two issues. One of the chronology of construction of the buildings and the other of the visibility of these spaces. The chronology of construction goes like this. Khwabgah was constructed in 1576 and was shifted in by the emperor by 1576. That we have an evidence of. Sunehra Makan is roughly placed between 1576 to 1580. And if one looks at the developments of the thoughts of the emperor and his own personal engagements at that point of time, he is having the philosophical, religious, scientific discussions exactly within this time period from 1575 to 1580. Priests with him. So any place left to retirement after being in this area is only the Khwabgah. So there might have been a possibility that Montserrat himself could have viewed these paintings. These are the number of people who could view these paintings or surface decorations. For Sunehra Makan, because it is located in the buffer zone between the very public Daulat Khana and the very private Haramsara, has larger visibility than the Khwabgah, but not completely publicly visible. That in Sunehra Makan as well, it is reported that Montserrat visited Akbar, who was having food at that point of time, and he saw certain images painted on the walls. So these are the references that are given to the kind of audience that was there to these two structures and their surface decorations, which rightly seems very limited in nature. There is hardly any outside eye which could reach these paintings and these surface decorations. Then, what was the purpose of these paintings of elaborate nature, having these religious and animate themes? What I want to argue here is that Akbar himself wanted to. It was Akbar's own for Akbar's own personal musings that these paintings were being made and the sculptures were being made. If we look at the time period from 1575 to 1580, we get to know that this was the time when Akbar is going through much mental exercise. This mental tension, or this grappling with the religious, personal and political views over religion, is also expressed in some of the actions that he took. Abolition of pilgrim tax, and then reimposition of the pilgrim tax, and also how Badayuni and other people identify him as being lost from Islam by 1575. So these are the things that are also happening at the same time. Also, Iqtidar Alam Khan has argued that it was between this period, between 1575 and 1580, which is precisely the time when he is occupying these very structures, Akbar was confused and was uncertain about his beliefs regarding religious thought. That's what Iqtidar Alam Khan has to argue. He says it was only in 1578 that he received last of his fits, which have been understood to have occurred as a result of much mental tension. So one thing that can be deduced from this is that between 1575 and 1580, Akbar was going through much mental exercise, trying to understand the nature of truth about different religions and God, one higher truth. And all this mental engagement can be looked at as a precursor to the rise of the idea of Sulh-e-Kul, which eventually came into being, to which Akbar strongly and wholeheartedly adhered to from 1581 onwards. And it was during these mentally restless times that Akbar was residing in these very structures. Abul Fazl's comment can be you can be reminded of Abul Fazl's comment here, who said that a painting of form can be used to arrive at wisdom for a regulated mind from ignorance. So these paintings might be doing that job for the emperor himself, having the motives of different faiths, and him pondering over them and developing an ideology which eventually is reflected in Sulh-e-Kul. Also, the development of Sulh-e-Kul from 1581 onwards might assert this fact that these were the paintings which were precisely for emperor's own personal using, and he was only developing his own understanding through these paintings. This is what I would like to submit here. If I have a little more time, I can add certain other things regarding the...
It's up to you. If you want more comments, and then it's okay.
Okay, I'd like to submit, please.
No, not at all.
Okay, so I wanted to add about the changing trends in the animate depictions of the period. There is this. Before Akbar, we hardly have any, and we do not have any animate depictions in the structures, on the surface decoration, on the walls of the structures. After Akbar, in Jahangir's period, we find a popularization of these depictions. We have animate depictions in the sarais. We have an animate depiction in Meherbano Sarai, which is near Humayun's tomb, and the Sarai Nur Mahal, the famous Sarai Nur Mahal, also has extensive facade with decorated decorated facade with animals depicted, human forms depicted. So this is what happens during Jahangir's time. There's also Europeanization of these motifs in the sense that there are still Christian themes, but the execution of those themes are very Iranian in nature. They are not, the angels themselves are not cherubs or putis. The angels are proper full-grown Iranian angels. But in Jahangir's period, we have extensive use of the motif of cherubs and the European-styled angels, which this has been worked upon extensively by Eva Koch in a number of her articles. So this is what I've observed, that there was a popularization of the depiction of animate motifs. There was no consciousness there does not appear any consciousness of having a religious backlash due to the depiction of these paintings in public spaces, which also might suggest the idea of Jahangir's sovereignty not being based on the bringer of Sharia law again, but on justice as such. But one thing that we notice is soon after Jahangir, during the period of Shah Jahan, the entire this entire theme this of depicting animate motifs on surface decorations fades away. We have a strong return back to the geometric and floral motifs. There's only one example of an Orpheus which is painted in the throne of Shah Jahan. Apart from it, there's hardly any reference to animal and animate or human forms depicted in Shah Jahani period. This can also be utilized in understanding how the politics or how the dynamics of the Mughal Empire are changing with time from Akbar to Shah Jahan's period. Thank you.
Fascinating paper. Just one comment, these paintings, whether in the Dados area or it's across the whole wall, because then it would situate where if these are the religious motives, where they are situating these. If they are up, because if the Dados area, then it's the down. So, and the other thing is very important, because you are looking from the religious point of view, then colors which are being used, these are, it appears that the artist seems to be either from Gujarat, or because the bright colors and red and all these, not the pastel white or blue colors, so it appears not cool and all that. So that, just a comment, not, and paper is open for discussion. It's
very much for a good paper. I would just like to point out what Abadi asked about, that most of these depictions, whether sculptures, you only talked about paintings and started showing sculptures. You should have said surface decoration, because both of these things are there. You were talking about paintings painted here, Orpheus painted there. Even Orpheus in Shah Jahan's time is not a painting. So you can talk about sculptural decorations. Animals, for example, in Anup Talav, Hujra Anup Talav, they are also sculptural, friezes, but they are not paintings. So let us talk about, the surface decorations, not exactly paintings. Some of them are paintings, of course. Coming back to what Abadi was pointing out, and that is a very good question she put up, and that is that most of those sculptures and paintings which can ever be interpreted as spiritual are on a higher level. For example, in the Khwabgah, there are certain taqs higher up, all around, where you have these depictions. For example, this so-called temple scene, that is almost just below the ceiling. So the highest level which you can, in fact, when I started photographing these, I was just wondering how would a person sitting in this room be observing them, because they are so on the top and just on the corners, but they are there. As far as audience is concerned, you are quite correct that there was a limited audience, but there are two examples. You pointed out one of them, Montserrat. Montserrat visiting both the places. Montserrat records that he was once invited to meet Akbar. And when he went to meet Akbar, he was led into a chamber by the Khwaja Saras, and then by the Kanis. And when he reached there, Akbar was sitting and having food. And that is why, I have tried to say that this particular painted chamber is the dining hall. Because Montserrat says that Akbar was having his food there. The whole table was laid out, and then Montserrat was invited to have food with Akbar sitting there. Montserrat then mentions certain of the paintings given in this particular structure. he says that behind Akbar on the walls, there were certain portraits. Moses, Jesus, they were there. And then he also points out, then Akbar said, वो देखिए उधर की तरफ वो मोहम्मद है. In a very, dismissive manner, so Muhammad is also there. I presume that none of them, there was no Jesus, no Moses, no Prophet Muhammad. They were just paintings. At least two of those portraits survived there. One of them is that of a woman. In fact, the other one is not clear. She's also called as a woman, but I'm not very sure whether it's a woman or an Iranian young man. Whatever it is, but two of the portraits survived there. On the outer side of the walls of this structure, these scenes of Annunciation and others are given. Not within the chamber. They are outside the chamber. As you enter, because Montserrat says that he entered along with the Kanis and others from the side of the Daulat Khana. So it is on that side that these angelic depictions are given. Is it that because Montserrat was there that Akbar ordered these Christian themes to be painted there just to show him off? Because Montserrat keeps on claiming कि बस ये Christian होने वाला है, आज होने वाला है, कल होने वाला है. We don't know. When these paintings were made, we don't know. But Montserrat is one of those who visited. Lubna also, while researching for this paper, found a reference that Montserrat was taken to the Khwabga. I had missed this when I was writing my book. I didn't pay attention to this. It is she who discovered that particular passage. But apart from that, there is another person who visited these places. There was a saint, a Hindu saint, Devi. Once Akbar decided that he should have some religious discussions, and as you can see that is there. I identify Ibadat Khana just to be outside the Khwabga. So he was taken there, and because he was an old man, he was not very keen to enter into the palace complex as such. So what was done is that it is recorded by Abul Fazl, it is recorded by Badayuni, that on a charpai with ropes tied to it, the saint was raised up to the window where Akbar was sitting in the Khwabga. And there the whole night they had a discussion. तो देवी जो डिस्कशन कर रहे थे इस पे बैठ के जस्ट जो वहां पे झरोका दिया हुआ है जहां से इनको रेस किया गया होगा, इफ वी बिलीव अबुल फजल, उसी के बिल्कुल सामने वो पेंटिंग है जो वो टेम्पल सीन है. Was this scene to overawe all those people who were coming here with dismembered bodies? That scene is very interesting. There's a temple scene within the Khwabga, all right, but it's a very gory scene. Deity is there, all right. There is a man. I'm not sure कि वो नमस्कार फॉर्म में है कि नहीं है, because जब स्मिथ ने भी उसको रिकॉर्ड किया था तो that hand portion was gone, so I don't know how she says it's in namaskar form. But there is a man observing that image, and another one with a halo pointing out towards the image. Right? So they are looking. But below the image, there are dismembered bodies, which are till date they are clear, you can see. So it's a very gory scene. So why such a gory scene where dismembered bodies, limbs, legs, hands, all scattered around within a place which is known as a Khwabga, a place where even the queens would be visiting. They would be coming to Akbar's chamber, as she rightly pointed out that it was not only Akbar but accessible to the members of the harem. They were also coming. Was it to overawe these people that the temple scene is there with all dismembered people who are there? The deity is there, all right. Golden deity is there with the golden crown, all right. लेकिन जो scene है वो that is not actually meant for the bed chamber. Apart from that, just in front of उसी के सामने वाला एक ताक है, उस पर there is another image. There is an animal which is, a combination of a bull and a camel. उसकी अजीब सी गर्दन है बिल्कुल कैमल की और hump के साथ बिल्कुल body है, and there's someone sitting on it. It's a black bull type of a thing. बिल्कुल उसके सामने. What does it mean? How do we interpret these paintings within the Khwabgah? We just never know. In the Sunera Makan, the other one, apart from these angelic depictions and apart from those women and all depicted, there are scenes of animal fights, elephant fights taking place. Apart from that, there are scenes where flowing water with fish in it, they are depicted. What is the actual meaning of this? We are not sure. But one thing is quite certain, that all these images could be made only during the period of Akbar. She tried to trace it in the end that even under Jahangir, such images were made. But under Jahangir, it's just elephants or camels or peacocks and birds, and, some angels, Christian themes. No Hindu theme, either gory or non-gory. They're not there. The image of Ram, Hanuman, Ganesh, which are there in Akbar's buildings, palaces which are associated with Akbar. But from Jahangir's period, Christian themes dominate. Although Jahangir is supposed to be the son of a Rajput or a Hindu woman, but nowhere in his buildings are these Hindu depictions found there. Under Shah Jahan, it is out of question. Aurangzeb aate aate to khatam ho gaye the. The peculiar feature is, as she pointed out, that these paintings are from 75, 76 onwards till around 1885, because in 1885 Akbar abandoned this place. So tab tak wo to thi yahan par. This is the period of his developing thought, as she pointed out. But in my opinion, it is the period when the policy of Sulhekul is being actively pursued. 81 to 85, and he is there. And all these paintings are there within the places where select people are supposed to enter. और जो पूरा ऑरा है वो जाहिर है कि जो हम लोग ये समझते हैं ना कि एम्पर के पास हम आप, ये तो कंसेप्ट ही नहीं था कभी. It was only select few who could enter the court, and whosoever would enter the court, they would be looking at these images. These are the images which reflect his sovereign authority. He controls their life and death. He has Ram there, all right. He has, Ganesha out there. But then he is the master of all. Alan Khoa, that painting which you showed, unfortunately doesn't survive. Now the evidence of that is only from Spit. अब जब हम लोगों ने जाके देखा था 1995 में, तो वहाँ पे अब it's all whitewashed, or it's all gone. It's not there. But that also, shows that there is an attempt to develop his theory of sovereignty through these images. Thank you very much for a good presentation.
Yes, Lubna, you try to relate these paintings, portrait paintings, with the religious policy of Akbar. I would like to know whether these paintings or portraits, which are generally located in the private chamber of the emperor, may be applied to the concept of Farrayasti, which was developed by Abul Fazl or Akbar. Do you think these paintings are related to these concepts? Because there are angels, and Akbar claimed that he was being guided directly by God, and that's why this painting shows that he was being guided directly by, and these are the sources which are bringing messages or guidelines for Akbar, whatever his decision was taking.
No, the entire myth of Alan Koa has been is there. The idea of Akbar asserting his sovereignty as being the light of God, or as the descendant of Alan Koa who was conceived by the divine light, that is an established argument. His own assertion of authority through these paintings, because the visibility of these paintings is very limited. He is probably not asserting his authority on somebody else, because as the discussion went on, how the audience is limited to select few. So it cannot be said that he was asserting his authority, but yes, the idea of Rezavi or the divine origin of Mughal kingship has been read in these paintings. These paintings have been interpreted in that light already. I am not doing it. That is.
Thanks for a very interesting presentation, Lubna. I was just thinking that, it was a very thought-provoking paper. And yesterday we had this entire session on gender. And generally we think that, and scholars like Rosalind O'Hanlon, Ruby Lal, etc., they have said that during the time of King Akbar, this dichotomy between the public and the private space, if one can use the term, though it has been largely contested, kept on increasing. And Ruby Lal, if I'm not mistaken, also says that it was during his time that the term Parde Gyan came to be used for the first time, which is the veiled ones for the women, and the construction of a separate domestic sphere, the harem. The term harem comes into existence during the time of King Akbar. That is also what Hanlon and Ruby Lal also point out. The interesting thing is that I think if one uses the evidence of these paintings, we can use this to contradict that argument.
Right.
So this thought just came to my mind because here, as Professor Rezavi also pointed out, that the domestic sphere is sort of becoming an articulation of what King Akbar was doing to assert his sovereignty. So what he was doing in the political sphere largely was being manifested within these largely domestic spaces. And they were even more private than probably those of the harem.
Exactly.
So, I will probably use this thing on those
Exactly.
lines. And you do talk about systematization of spaces, though you couldn't because I think due to paucity of time.